You know those web addresses you tap into your phone or type on your computer every single day?
Yeah, absolutely.
They're more than just like a string of letters. They're kind of the foundation of the online world, this digital real estate we call domain names.
Right. It's like an address.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Think of it like this. Instead of having to remember some complicated street address for every store, you just have a catchy name, maybe Target.com or Etsy.com.
And what's really interesting, I think, is how these simple names, well, seemingly simple, actually underpin our whole digital experience.
Yeah.
They're the key that unlocks every site we visit.
Totally. And today, we're going to really dive into this world of domain investing. We've gathered about 30 of the most common questions people ask about, buying, selling, maybe even profiting from these digital addresses.
Okay.
So whether you're just getting curious or you're maybe looking to understand it a bit better, consider this your, let's say, express lane to grasping the basics.
Yeah, our goal with this deep dive is really to give you a solid foundational understanding. We've kind of sifted through these questions and answers to pull out the key insights, hoping to give a good overview without getting too bogged down in super technical jargon.
All right, perfect. Let's kick things off with the most fundamental question then.
Yeah.
What is a domain name, really?
Simply put, a domain name is that address you type into a web browser. To find a website, think wikipedia.org or your go-to news site, whatever it is.
So,
But the key thing is, it acts as a user-friendly stand-in for the site's numerical IP address. That makes the internet way easier to navigate and remember things.
so yeah, instead of just a jumble of numbers, we get a name we can actually recall. Makes browsing way easier. Now, how does the process work if you want to actually register one?
Well, you typically go through what's called a domain name registrar. These are companies accredited to handle registrations. Think GoDaddy, Namecheap, Google Domains, lots of them. And you essentially lease the rights to use that specific name for a set time, usually a year. You pay a registration fee.
Uh-huh.
And as long as you keep renewing that registration, usually annually, you maintain exclusive use of that domain. It's almost like leasing an apartment number in the huge city of the internet.
Leasing a slice of the internet. I like that analogy.
Yeah.
Okay, what if you find a great domain, but you're not quite ready to build a website? That's where domain parking fits in, isn't it?
Precisely. Yeah. Domain parking is basically when you buy a domain but don't immediately develop a full site on it.
Great.
Instead, you might put up ads or just a simple for sale notice. This can, potentially generate a little bit of income, or maybe you just want to hold on to it for future use or to sell later.
Like buying a vacant lot in a good neighborhood.
Exactly like that, staking your claim.
So your claim is some online territory. Now let's talk money. How can someone actually make money from domain names?
Well, there are a few main ways. The most direct is just buying low and selling high, flipping them for a profit.
Right.
You can also lease them out to businesses or individuals who want the name temporarily. Some people use domain parking for ad revenue, like we just mentioned. And of course, actually building a valuable website or service on a strong domain name can significantly boost its value when you eventually decide to sell the whole package.
So flipping the land, renting it out, or building something valuable on it. Got it. Now, I often hear this term premium domains. What makes a domain premium?
Premium domains. They're kind of the blue chip names. They tend to be short, very easy to remember, super brandable, or maybe packed with valuable keywords. Think cars.com or maybe insurance.net.
Wow, okay.
Yeah, because they offer these inherent advantages: memorability, potential traffic. They can fetch really high prices. We're talking thousands, sometimes even millions of dollars.
Millions. For just a web address, that's wild.
It can be, yeah. Think of them as the beachfront properties of the internet.
Okay, so how do you even start to figure out what a domain might be worth? How do you value these things?
Valuing a domain, it's a bit of an art and a science. You look at a few key factors. One really important thing is comparable sales, what have similar domains sold for. You can find data on sites like namebio.com.
Okay, name bio.
Then there's the demand for the keywords in the domain. You can gauge that using tools like, say, the Google Ads Keyword Planner.
Makes sense.
Other things matter too. The length shorter is usually better, how brandable it is, and the extension, the TLD. And .com is still generally seen as the most valuable.
Right.
There are also automated tools like Estabot or GoDaddy appraisals that give estimates, but honestly, a human understanding of market trends and brand potential is often key.
So it's data plus kind of market feel. You mentioned domain extensions, the TLDs. Can you break that down a bit more?
Absolutely. TLD stands for top-level domain. It's just the part after the .com, .org, .net, .io, things like that.
Gotcha.
And while there are now hundreds, literally hundreds of different TLDs available, it's really important to remember that .com still carries the most weight in terms of, public recognition, trust, and definitely resale value.
Yeah, .com just feels like the default, doesn't it? But what about .net and .org? What were they meant for originally, and how do people see them now?
A good question. Originally, the idea was .com for commercial sites, .net for network infrastructure type organizations, and .org for nonprofits.
Okay.
But over time, those lines have blurred a lot. While they sometimes still align that way, .com has really become the dominant, most recognized extension, and that's why it generally commands a higher value in the resale market.
Right, so if you're aiming to sell, .com is usually the better bet. Now, let's say you find a buyer. What's the safest way to actually handle the transfer of ownership?
The gold standard is using an escrow service. A reputable one, like escrow.com, is probably the best known.
Escrow.com, okay.
Yeah, the process usually involves you, the seller, unlocking the domain at your registrar, getting what's called a transfer authorization code, sometimes called an auth code or EPP code. You give that code to the buyer, they initiate the transfer at their registrar, and then you approve the request. The escrow service holds the buyer's money until the transfer is confirmed, protecting both sides.
Like a neutral third party for the digital handover. Makes perfect sense.
Exactly.
I've also heard the term domain name speculation. What's that all about?
Domain name speculation is pretty much what it sounds like. It's buying domains because you believe their value will go up over time.
Okay.
It's similar in concept to investing in other assets, maybe stocks or crypto, but here you're investing in digital addresses, this digital real estate. The goal is to snap up names you think will be in high demand later on.
So, trying to predict the future of online naming. Sounds potentially lucrative, maybe a bit risky too. Now let's get slightly technical again. What is the domain name system, the DNS you mentioned?
Right, the DNS. Think of it as the internet's giant address book or phone book.
Okay.
When you type a domain name, like google.com, into your browser, the DNS system works behind the scenes. It translates that friendly name into the numerical IP address of the server where Google's website files are stored.
The translation part.
Exactly. That translation lets your browser connect to the right server and show you the web page. It's like looking up a contact name in your phone to find their actual number.
The internet's silent translator. Got it. Okay, so say you have a domain you want to sell. How do you list it? Where do you put it up for sale?
You'd typically list it on specialized domain name marketplaces. Popular ones include Sedo, Aphornic, Flippa.
Yeah.
Even community forums like NamePros can be good.
Sedo, Afternic, Flippa, NamePros.
Yeah. When you list it, you decide. Set a fixed buy it now price or just accept offers. And it helps to optimize your listing with relevant keywords buyers might search for.
Right. Make it easy to find. Like putting a for sale sign on your digital property where buyers hang out. Are there other big platforms people use?
Oh, yeah. Besides those, GoDaddy Auctions is huge. And DA.com, which actually recently became part of GoDaddy, is another major player in the aftermarket.
Okay.
Each platform has slightly different audiences and features, so sometimes listing on multiple platforms can be a good strategy to get more eyes on your domain.
Spread the word, basically.
Yeah.
We talked about TLDs. Can you just clarify the difference between GTLDs and CCTLDs again?
Sure. GTLD is generic top-level domain. Those are the common ones we know.
Yeah.
.com, .net, .org, .info, .biz.
The classics.
Right. CCTLD is country code top-level domain. These are tied to specific countries. So .uk for the United Kingdom, .de for Germany, .ca for Canada.
Okay, country specific.
Mostly. What's interesting is some CCTLDs, like .io, which is
Wow.
technically for the British Indian Ocean Territory, or .ai for Anguilla, have become super popular globally, especially with tech startups, kind of losing their specific geographic tie in practice.
Huh. Interesting how that happens. Now, this WHOIS database, what exactly is that?
The WHOIS database is basically a public directory. It holds registration info for domain names, who owns it, their contact details sometimes, their registrar, registration dates, expiration dates.
So public info.
Traditionally, yes, its purpose was transparency, but nowadays most registrars offer privacy services. You pay a little extra, and they mask your personal details, showing the privacy service's info instead.
Like an unlisted number.
Kind of, yeah. Though it's worth noting for some TLDs, particularly some country codes, privacy services aren't allowed, or certain info must be public by registry rules.
Okay, good to know. If you're considering buying a domain, how can you check its history? Make sure there are no skeletons in the closet.
That's really smart due diligence, hugely important. The Wayback Machine at archive.org is fantastic. It lets you see snapshots of what websites look like on that domain in the past.
Oh, cool. Like a time machine for websites.
Exactly. You can also check WHOI's history tools to see how often ownership has changed. Frequent changes might be a red flag, maybe. And if it hosted a site before, checking tools like Google Search Console or just searching Google can sometimes reveal if it had penalties or was used for spammy stuff. It's like getting a history report on a used car.
Definitely worth doing that check.
Yeah.
Now, this sounds intense. Domain drop catching. What is that?
Right, drop catching. It's the process of trying to register desirable domain names the very second they expire and become available again.
So when someone forgets to renew.
Exactly. When a domain isn't renewed, it goes through a deletion cycle. Drop catching services use automated systems to try and grab or catch those domains the instant they drop back into the public pool.
Wow.
It can be super competitive. Valuable expired names are often targeted by many people and services simultaneously. It's like a high-speed digital race to grab the dropped baton.
A digital land rush, for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, say you connect with a buyer. How do you negotiate the sale effectively?
Negotiation. Well, professionalism is key. Be prepared. Justify your asking price with data if you can. Those comparable sales we talked about, keyword data.
Right, have your reasons.
Definitely. Using an escrow service, again, adds security and trust for both sides. And sometimes being flexible helps close the deal. Maybe consider installment payments or even a lease-to-own arrangement.
Good point. Flexibility can seal the deal. Let's touch on the legal side. What are the big legal pitfalls to watch out for in domain investing?
The absolute biggest one is trademark infringement. You really have to avoid registering domains that clearly piggyback on someone else's registered trademark.
Like, don't register Coca-Cola-Deals.com.
Exactly that kind of thing. The trademark owner can file a dispute, often through something called the UDRP, the Uniform Domain Name Dispute Resolution Policy, and they can potentially force you to hand over the domain if you're found to be infringing in bad faith.
Okay, so steer clear of trademark names.
Yeah.
Got it.
Sure.
And if you do end up in a dispute, how does that usually get resolved?
If someone challenges your domain, the first step is probably to consult an attorney who specializes in domain law. Seriously.
Good advice.
Many disputes, as I mentioned, go through ICANN's UDRP process. An arbitrator looks at things like, is your domain confusingly similar to their trademark? Do you have legitimate rights or interests in the name? And crucially, did you register and use it in bad faith? Showing you had a legitimate reason and weren't just trying to profit off their mark is key.
Okay, there's a process.
Mhm.
Now, protecting your own domains. Once you have some valuable ones, how do you stop them from getting stolen?
Security is critical. Absolutely. Use two-factor authentication, 2FA, on your registrar account. Use strong, unique passwords for everything. Enable the registrar lock feature for your domains that prevents unauthorized transfers.
Registrar lock, okay.
Using WHOIS privacy helps protect your personal info, too. And it sounds obvious, but never ever share your login details with anyone. Treat your domain access like your bank account access.
The digital locks and keys. Makes sense. Let's talk about types of names again. What are brandable domain names?
Brandable domains are names that are unique, memorable, maybe even made up, but they sound good. Think names like Etsy or Slack or Zillow. They don't necessarily rely on existing keywords.
Oh, they create their own meaning.
Exactly. They're often seen as more valuable long-term than generic keyword domains like, say, cheapcarinsuranceonline.com because they offer a blank slate to build a strong, distinct brand identity. They have huge marketing potential, so they can sell for a lot.
So unique and catchy versus descriptive. Interesting trade-off. Now, what about SEO? How much does the actual domain name matter for search rankings these days?
That's changed a lot over the years. Its direct impact on SEO is definitely less than it used to be.
Right.
Exact match domains, EMDs, where the domain perfectly matches a search query, might still offer a tiny edge in some niche cases, but honestly, the overwhelming consensus now is that high-quality content, user experience, and strong backlinks are way, way more important for SEO.
So the name helps with branding, but the site itself is what gets ranked.
Pretty much, yeah. A good name helps people remember you and click, but it's the substance that keeps you ranked high.
Got it. Now, what about leasing or lease to own for domains? How does that work?
Domain leasing is basically renting out your domain name. Someone pays you a regular fee, maybe monthly or yearly, to use your domain for their website or project. You still own it, but they get to use it.